I might not can say that I know what happened to Deorr Kunz, but I got a real good idea now. All right, guys, today we're going to talk about Deorr Kunz. This case is fairly old at this point. 2015, so we're looking at 6.5 years. It's been a while. Let's just get into it though. All right, July 9th, 2015. Deorr Kunz's parents decide they're going to take a camping trip. And they decide they're going to also take Deorr's mother, whose name's Jessica. They're going to take her grandfather along with them on this camping trip. The camping trip seemed kind of last minute, and I guess they asked Grandpa. Grandpa was like, "Yeah, sure, I'm going to take my buddy Isaac with me." So they ended up being 5 deep going on this camping trip. We had the parents of Deorr, Deorr Sr., Jessica, Deorr, Grandpa Bob, and his friend Isaac. So 5 people went camping. Now, they drive to Timber Creek Campground, which is about 10 miles outside of the town of Deorr. This is in Idaho. They're from Idaho Falls. They arrive around 9:30 on the night of July the 9th, 2015. They set up their 2 tents, and basically that's all they get done. They retire for the evening. So the next morning, they get up, have some breakfast, and it's right after breakfast, Jessica says she realized that she needed to go into town to pick up some feminine hygiene products. So they say Jessica, Deorr Sr., and little Deorr Jr. all load up in the truck and they head into town. Now, the parents talk about while they're in town, they have a little, I don't know, I guess you'd call it a minor run-in with the beer delivery guy. The beer delivery guy is, bringing some beer in, and somehow they get to talking. He sees little Deorr, says hey to him and stuff like that. And that's the end of that little encounter. They get some gas. Apparently, it was full serve. There's a gas guy pumping the gas. They say, the gas guy sees Deorr and them, and that's basically their encounter. Then they go into a convenience store. Inside the store, Deorr's talking to the cashier, and there's another guy in there, and he seems to be, according to Jessica, giving Deorr kind of a weird look. So their trip into town, a lot happened. They were seen by a lot of people. So there's no question really about the trip into town as far as they made the trip. They get their stuff. They get some gas. Jessica gets what she needs, this and that. They return to the campground. They get back to the campground. Turns out Isaac and Grandpa caught some fish. So Jessica and Deorr Sr. are excited to find out about this fishing spot. Where'd y'all catch these fish? What's going on with the fish, man? Let's go check it out. So they decide they're going to go down to the creek, and Isaac's going to show them where the fish were caught, where the fish are at. Well, as they're going to the creek, Jessica says Deorr's kind of straggling along behind them, and she's like, "Do you want to go with us, or do you want to stay with Grandpa Bob?" Says Deorr heads back to Grandpa Bob. She don't even act like he responds. He's just like, "Yeah, Grandpa Bob." So they go down. Jessica says 5 minutes. Deorr Sr. says 15 to 20 that they're gone. They come back. Ask Grandpa Bob, "Where's Deorr?" Grandpa Bob's like, "I thought he was with you." And he's gone. So After this, they tell that they search for Deorr for about an hour. They both agree on that. And then Jessica calls 911, and Deorr goes down the road to get a better signal. He's worried about the signal not getting out or it getting cut off or, something like that happening. So he goes to get a better signal, gets in his truck and takes off. So that's their basic story. And like I said, they call 911. The search is on. They get a pretty good quick response according to the sheriff. And searchers come and they start looking for Deorr. They get a lot of stuff. Like, I don't know if it's that day, but I know by the next day they've got helicopters, infrared, horseback, ATV, dogs. Tons of effort into finding Deorr. Now, Deorr's 2 years old. He's got on oversized cowboy boots, pajama pants, and a camouflage jacket, according to the parents. And this is one thing that got brought up really early is with the oversized cowboy boots, 2 years old, how far could it be gotten, right? Well, there is a creek near the campsite. So the initial worry was maybe he had not made it to the creek. But after you see this creek, it's not much of a creek. There's no way they wouldn't have found him if he would have been in that creek. Let's just say that. And it was searched pretty extensively. Nobody thinks he's in the creek. So the parents decide it's a good time to hire a private investigator to help this out. Now, they initially hire Frank Phillip, who is a private investigator. And this dude's resume matches anybody, the best you could probably find in a private investigator. This guy's seasoned. Well, Mr. Phillip, one of his early things was he wanted to go national, but the parents said no, the sheriff didn't want him to. And he had learned from the sheriff that that was untrue. That was one of his early red flags about Deorr Sr. and Jessica. He thought that was odd that they didn't want to take it national. And he wanted to offer a reward, and they wasn't much about that either. And he thought that was extremely strange. Now, he also says, as Jessica's telling her story, she mentions like 10 times that she kept looking back to make sure he was with Grandpa. And he found that kind of odd that she kept like emphasizing that. And he says, the further it went along, the less truthful he found the parents to be. And he ended up resigning. So, he eventually resigns, and they're talking to him like down the road a little bit. He's explaining, the stuff that made him resign. He said, he stated the thing about he felt like they weren't being honest. Then they asked him, why come forward now? He said he came forward now because the parents lied and said they fired him. That was a falsehood. And he says that the guy making the 411 documentary, or the missing documentary, he said something like that, was the one that told him that. Dave Pilatus did a Deorr Kunz. Deorr Kunz was actually a huge part of his movie, Missing 411. So I'm kind of thinking he's talking about Dave Pilatus told him about they lied and said they fired him. He also said, because down the road, the sheriff actually names the parents as suspects. And he says he wasn't surprised that the sheriff named them suspects because he kind of thinks they're suspects. And he said he's not surprised they haven't made an arrest yet either because like things like double jeopardy and all that. They want to make sure the case is locked down before they go there. He did volunteer his own theory. And his theory was that Jessica arranged an out-of-state adoption because when she had Deorr, her tubes were tied. Without Deorr, when she had Deorr, her tubes were tied. So he didn't think that she really wanted Deorr. And in the state that they live in, he says that she could have put Deorr up for adoption without Senior ever having to know. But, that was pretty long ago that he said that, because you would think by now, definitely, they would have uncovered this adoption if it was legal. Now, maybe he really meant it was like a black market type setup. I wasn't clear about that. So after he quits, the family's like, we got to have some private eye. So they hire Phillip Klein. Now, Phillip Klein did some investigating, did quite a lot. He interviewed like over 150 witnesses, checked on 300 tips. Phillip Klein eventually come to the conclusion that he thinks it was an accidental death or homicide. And he goes on to tell a bunch of reasons why. He says Deorr Kunz had 9 interviews, none matched, and nothing in those interviews was verified. Says he can't match getting the gas story. Says the guy pumping the gas saw Deorr. That guy says he never seen that kid. Now, he didn't say that he knew there wasn't a kid there, but he said he never seen the kid. And he says all the witnesses contradict the parents. No one seen Deorr from that trip into town. And there's quite a few people. The beer truck guy, right? Well, the beer truck guy says that story couldn't be possible because they're saying that they run into him out front. He says, nope, I pull around back. I always bring it in the back, which makes sense if he was going to deliver beer on a fork or a dolly and all that, makes sense. And he says, I know that's not true. And he says, and by the way, I don't remember seeing that kid anyway, Then they had the guy or the clerk in the store. They never seen Deorr either. Klein, man, he went off on him. He said that even they talk about people talked and played with Deorr. None of that never happened. It says Vernal failed 5 polygraphs in the 99th percentile range. Failed when he was asked if he was going to tell the truth, like a control question in the beginning. They're like, do you plan on telling us the truth? He'd be like, yeah. And they'd be like, don't match up. So, and eventually, after Klein, they didn't re-sign Phillip Klein's contract because I guess they thought, it's probably not a good idea. This guy thinks we did it to keep him in our employee, right? Well, Klein comes out after this and tells all this stuff. Well, they end up suing him. Now, the last thing I seen on that was most everything they sued him for had been thrown out, and 2019. I think there's some stuff about Jessica, too, that really make you wonder. Like, she took no pictures of this excursion, and everybody's like, man, she's big on social media. She constantly posted. She was asked about that. She's like, I don't know, I was just relaxing. Well, a lot of the times relaxing's, hanging out, doing stuff, taking pics. Relaxing doesn't mean, taking pics isn't hard labor, so that didn't make any sense to anybody. They said she get 5 interviews, none of them matched. Polygraph, she could pass her name and where she's at, but like Vernal, she fails on, are you going to tell us the truth today? Phillip Klein says she does know where the body is and has told investigators that. That could be one of the things that they sued him for that haven't got dropped, possibly, but they say most everything's been dropped, so I'm not sure. It's interesting. Grandpa eventually stated to Phillip Klein that he believed there could have been an accident. Grandpa Bob, because Grandpa Bob was really old. He's passed now, and he was on oxygen, and I think they said he had early onset, dementia or something like that. He wasn't like, unable to do anything, but he was pretty old, and he seemed an odd choice to leave Deorr with, in my opinion, anyway. A little 2-year-old boy, a guy that's, up in his golden years, he's on oxygen, he's got, other little issues. I don't know that I would have wanted to put the burden of my 2-year-old on him. That's just my opinion. Like everything I state in this video, just my opinion. Just what I think. And Klein said that Jessica had broke down with them and with law enforcement, and she said she knows where the body is. Klein believes it was an accident. He's not closing the door on homicide, but he believes it was an accident. And he also states that between 8 o'clock that morning and the 911 call, nothing can be verified that they've said. And, if something did happen, there's a good chance it would have been during that period. Klein also talks about, right after this camping trip, they're evicted from their apartment. Well, the landlord allows him to go in and look around after their eviction. He goes in, he says he found the camouflage jacket and some Matchbox cars that they said went missing with Deorr. That could have been another one of the things they sued him over. I don't know, but like I said, they say the majority of that's already been dropped, and I'm pretty sure they've had no victories against Phillip Klein. Now, I made some notes, kind of some odd things I thought too. Wasn't long after this, 8 months, Jessica gets married, not to Deorr Sr., but to somebody else. A lot of people thought that seemed odd to, because I don't think they were married, either her and Deorr Sr., but I think they were planning to get married, and they thought it odd that after Deorr went missing, not only did she end up leaving him, but she was already married within 8 months. A lot of people seem really suspicious of Jessica. Vernal moved out of state. He moved, I can't remember. It seemed like it was a ways off to be a truck driver. And that seems like one of them things you wouldn't have to move out of state. Truck drivers, I don't know. Around here, man, you can't walk 5 feet without seeing an offer of a truck driving job. So, and it's always been like that. Grandpa passed away. So whatever Grandpa knew or didn't know, we'll never know. And it seemed very consistent that everybody agreed that out of everybody's stories, Isaac remained the most consistent. You got to wonder if Isaac was used as an alibi witness, possibly, because Isaac seemed like he had maybe some issues that would make him a little less observant than, others. And, they invent boogeyman's, it seems like, Jessica and Vernal. They talk about this stranger in the restaurant that was staring at Deorr, right? Well, they located this guy. He was actually a local, right? And this guy says he didn't even see a kid in the store. So they're over on anybody seeing Deorr that they said saw him. No one that they talked about ever said they actually seen Deorr. And he was supposed to have been in the store. He was supposed to have interactions with the beer delivery guy. And this local, Jessica said, was looking at him creepy. But yet, they said the investigator guy come out clean as a whistle, and he never even seen Deorr. I think it's very interesting. You hire 2 private investigators. One of them resigns. The other one you don't rehire or you don't re-sign the contract because he thinks you're guilty. And they said at one point, Jessica said she believed Vernal was capable. Now, that's about as hardcore as either one of them's ever went on the other one. And I'm going to tell you why, because I think I might have figured this out. Vernal had some reception to make the 911 call, but he thought he needed to go off to get better reception. I thought that was very strange. You know, at this point, they'd been there 18, 20 hours. You would pretty much know, or they would pretty much have a good idea if the reception was decent or not. And apparently it was, because Jessica wasn't supposed to have went anywhere, and her call seemed like it went through pretty good. They mentioned they got evicted right after Deorr went missing, you know, and a lot of people was like, well, you know, if they are so strapped for cash, why would you be going camping? Because that incurs cost, you know, this wasn't like right down the road. So there's gas and, you know, different stuff. A lot of people think the camping trip was specifically for the purpose of what happened. And, you know, now we're at the point both the police and the private eyes are saying it's the parents, because the police come out a while back and named them persons of interest, suspects, one or the other. I don't know. But being named either one's very telling. And, you know, my thoughts on the trip to the store, that just seems very odd that no one's seen Deorr. It's hard to believe that if he was with them and he was up and moving around as 2-year-olds do, nobody would have seen him. And how did nobody see him when he went in the store? I seen a thing a while back. Jessica gives the Letitia Stodge speech. Oh boy, everybody's gonna feel like dum-dums when they find out how wrong they are. That's who I thought of, was Letitia Stodge. Y'all ever see the interview with Letitia Stodge where she's like, man, y'all been so mean to me. You're going to regret it so bad when you find out how innocent I am. It reminded me of that. It really did. And another quick one. They have a new private eye on it. I'm not going to get into him much because I'm not. He doesn't give a clear enough opinion to where I feel like I could interpret what he really thinks. Now, a lot of people thought it was interesting. Jessica has 2 other children, and she relinquished them to their father, saying that, you know, they couldn't handle the financial burden of them. And you can look at that 2 ways. Either as, you know, she didn't want to take care of them, or she was really selfless and wanted what was best for them. I don't know Jessica personally. I can't speak for her intentions, but a lot of people thought that was interesting. I thought it was interesting to even leave Deorr with Grandpa. You know, Grandpa's way up there and not in great shape. 2 years old. Doesn't make sense to me why you would do that. I don't know why not do that. He's a little 2-year-old. Pick him up and take him with you. I wouldn't have left that burden on my grandpa. It's my opinion. My opinion only. Klein, Jessica said she knew where Deorr was. He said there was blood on the parents' truck and the parents failed polygraphs. So I think it's interesting, man, all the stuff he said. And, you know, apparently some of it wasn't true because they wouldn't have thrown it out, you know? So he didn't lie about everything regardless. And I'm not saying he lied about anything. I don't know. You know, and they go over, I've seen quite a few people go over the theories, the wandered off theory. No, I don't see that. Not at all. Not a 2-year-old that little. They would have found a scent, a trace, a boot, something by now. I don't buy that. Not at all. Animal attack, no, there would have been some trace still. They said them boots would have come off for sure. These are pros that said that, not just my opinion. Stranger abductor, highly unlikely. Where they were at, it was in the middle of nowhere, you know. And if nobody in the stores could even spot Deorr, you know, what's the odds that some stranger lurking around somewhere saw him? So, no, accident, I think, is probably the strongest possibility. And then there's some people that think Deorr was never even at the campsite, right? So, having said all that, I think y'all have a general idea of what was going on, but I want to throw you my theory, okay? My theory is, and my theory stokes from the timing of Deorr's Sr.'s 911 call and Jessica's 911 call. Now, if they're going to call 911, Jessica's right there, she can call. Deorr's going off to get better signal, he can call. Why did Deorr Sr.'s call come in 6 minutes ahead of Jessica's? I think it's because he was doing something with evidence. I think that's why he left. I don't think the most normal person, if you had any kind of a signal, wouldn't have tried that first before running off when he's disappeared right in the vicinity. Why are you going to drive further away from whatever happened if you don't have to? That makes no sense. And I think that fits in with the reason they haven't kind of flipped on each other, is because, to me, that would make sense, because Deorr Sr. knows where the best evidence is. Jessica knows what happened, but she might not know exactly where the evidence is. So if she just puts it out there that she knows something happened to Deorr, she could go to jail and he could be scot-free. All he had to be is like, I have no idea what she's talking about. How they going to convict him? I think that's why they ain't flipped on each other. I really do. And I think it makes perfect sense. My only thing is, the only thing I don't like about my theory is I think he was never in town. I don't know if he was never at the campsite, but I'm pretty confident he wasn't in town. And if he was in town, he wasn't conscious, in my opinion. All these are my opinions, you know. But when you look at the two private investigators, both think that. The cops have came out and named them as persons of interest or suspects. I'm not sure which. You know, either one basically says they think that. And, you know, just there's nowhere else to really go with it. Grandpa Bob didn't do nothing. And Isaac, a lot of people say, well, maybe it was Isaac. Well, how could Isaac have done it? Think about that, okay? He never left. How could he have hit him to where the searchers coming right in and the search dogs and everything wouldn't have found him? It wasn't Isaac. Isaac and Grandpa Bob, in my book, are cleared. And that only leaves two. That's my opinion. That's the Deorr story. I do a ton of stories on true crime. Deorr was the reason I started doing this, man. I remember that like it was yesterday. That's one of the first cases where I was like, man, something just ain't right about this. That just, Anyway, that's my video. I hope you guys like it. If you do, subscribe to my channel. It rocks. You can ask all my subscribers. They think so. And they're cool people, too. The comments flow. That's my video, guys. I hope you like it. I hope you like it.